When I was going through my research to interview you, the first thing that came up was about how you're projecting that Tamil Nadu will become a $1 trillion economy by 2030. How do you plan on achieving that, especially with so many predictions and projections of a recession coming?
Yeah, actually, let me clarify that. That was not my prediction or projection. Our Chief Minister set a goal.
Okay.
And that goal is that we should get to 1 trillion by 2030. Now, that goal has some inherent complexities or variables beyond our control. The first is that $1 trillion implies that we know what the dollar is going to be to some extent, right? But some of it is adjustable in the sense that there's also the whole inflation built in, and inflation differentials will also affect foreign exchange rates and so forth like that. But at the base assumption, we'd have to grow about 14.5% to where we ended 21-22. At least the latest estimate, 14.5% in notional terms, which if you assume inflation is going to be probably 5-6, which is a safe assumption because inflation is out of control all over the world. And inflation tends to be sticky. It's very hard to control inflation in the short term. So then we're really talking about 8.5%, 7.5% real growth. Now, there's a good track record of this. If you look at Tamil Nadu between 2006 and 2011, despite the global financial crisis, the CAGR in real growth was 10.15 or 11%. So there is a track record of doing that. So Tamil Nadu is large enough an economy, has enough of global connect and attractiveness, particularly as we see the macro trends of diversification outside of China, but also meaningful consumption base because our Gini coefficient is lower than many relatively well-to-do states like Maharashtra or Gujarat. We actually have a stronger percentage of the economy that's domestic consumption. So it's not an unreasonable target to get to 1 trillion on this trajectory. We already have a project underway through tender and advisory mandate, where we're going to get a more concrete, the path to 1 trillion, which industry sectors, at what years, under what trends and so forth, blueprint, But all this subject to the point you just mentioned, which is that these goals are made, on the assumption that things stay somewhat normal, right? And as you know, at least since 2008, maybe some would argue earlier than that, like I do about monetary policy, we have lived in a bit of a surreal world, right? There's probably trillions of dollars of excess liquidity out there. As long as it was only market liquidity and Reserve Bank liquidity, it seemed to not affect inflation in the way that traditional models would have indicated. But now we have a real problem because during COVID, fiscal kind of stimulus came in a big way around the world. Right? One would argue maybe not as much in India, but in many parts of the world, there was a lot of fiscal stimulus. And that has certainly now stoked inflation at a global level to unseen in decades levels, right? Like 10%, 8%, 9%. There's no history of this kind of inflation with this much liquidity out there. And so there's a definite question in everybody's mind. Is a soft landing possible? Is it possible to contain inflation and withdraw liquidity from such extreme kind of outlier scenarios as we are in today without causing a major global recession? So we're all subject to that. If that happens, then of course we have to reassess at what rate we'll grow. The one point I have made is that because such a possibility exists, because there's a significant probability, non-zero probability of a global recession in the next couple of years, that at least for the state of Tamil Nadu, under the guidance of my Chief Minister, I've started preparing for such a scenario in terms of, looking for additional sources of liquidity, rolling over under the 15th Finance Commission terms, rolling over debt capacity, keeping our fiscal situation very controlled, so that till 2026 we can roll over the unused borrowing limit, as you know. So rolling over debt borrowing capacity, looking for assets and so forth and valuations. I don't want to get too much into detail, but we are certainly planning for that scenario. That scenario is to alleviate the consequences of a global recession. We have some plans in place. But obviously that will affect the pace at which you can get to 1 trillion. That's beyond our control.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.